the new scoreboard.
Yeah, if you want to, we can go out there and throw some sliders.
Swing and a miss on a changeup down.
It is a changeup, and it is ridiculous.
Babyface assassin, the silent assassin.
Turns, throws, got it! What a play! Oh, man!
Have a Seat with Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson. Presented by Feiger Law.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Have a Seat podcast.
Brought to you by Feiger Law, our presenting sponsor. All
We
do
is
win.
Reese Olson, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
You, as we record this, you are one start removed from one terrific start in Atlanta. You're basically going home. You got many friends and family in the ballpark. You're coming off a stretch of, really for the first time in your career, 3 straight starts where you struggled a little bit, gave up more hits than we're used to seeing. You go out and deal for 6 innings, you end up no walks, 8 strikeouts in that ballpark against that lineup. That was amazing. And it's going to lead to our discussion today about the development of a young pitcher, but it seemed like kind of everything came together. All the things that you have learned came together in that start. How satisfying was it, and how much fun was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Going back home, playing the team I watched growing up, having, I don't know the exact amount, but probably, over 100 people there. But yeah, the start, I think it was just kind of staying the course, understanding that I've been pretty good in the league for, a little over a year now, I guess. So having 3 bad ones in a row, didn't perform great, but also had a little bit of bad luck in there. So just understanding that I'm good enough, my stuff's good enough, and just kind of trusting that.
Yeah, and to give people a feel for how good you had been going back to the end of last year, it was 50 hits allowed in 82 innings of work, which is ridiculous. So, but that's a hard thing, I would think, sometimes for a young player to say, okay, I'm doing everything right. It's just maybe things are correcting a little bit, and to stick with what you're doing because it was working.
Yeah, I mean, giving up double-digit hits in back-to-back starts, it's kind of one of those things. It's like almost impossible to do. So, kind of just have to flush those things. I mean, it's tough. I kind of give myself a little bit of time, kind of be frustrated that night, but then the next day it's right back to work. So, just kind of trying to flush. If you have a bad one, have a few bad ones in a row, just kind of flush it and move on.
I want to go over your career because it's fascinating, the development process. There's so many layers to it. So just the quick background, you're tall and skinny with a fast arm in high school. You get stronger, the fastball velo ticks up, you get drafted in the 13th round by Milwaukee. 10 innings in your first year, the draft year, 95 the next year. Some ups, some downs, but high walk rate, strikeouts, still getting to where you want it to be. Then COVID hits. And I always think of this, so many young players in your particular group, generation, affected by that year. Some, their development was absolutely harmed. You seem to take that and go, okay, what can I do to get better in what is obviously a year where I'm not going to pitch competitively? Did that year end up helping you, hurting you? Was it a wash?
I think it helped me. I just got so much stronger, I think, during that year. I put on some good weight. So I think it helped me. Obviously, frustrating not being able to, get the experience versus pitching versus hitters for that year. But I would say it helped me, just in the sense of just getting stronger.
what I would say is what we haven't had on this podcast to this point is a music track. And I really appreciate that there was music going because it feels like we're sitting in the pitcher pub right here, right? The pitcher's pub. And it feels very much like we belong because there's TV screens, we got a pitcher here, we have the pub feel. And I think, you want to pause here, Lydia? We're going to pause here for a second. You were saying about 2020, how did that affect your career?
Yeah, I just think being, obviously at home, I was still able to go to the facility and work out. So I just got so much stronger during that time. Not having the hitters to throw against obviously was, I guess, a year lost. Not lost, but development-wise, I just used the time to get stronger, and that obviously helped me throw harder and be able to maintain my velo and stuff throughout the year.
I'm like an expert in first impressions because people think something about me that's probably not true when they first meet me, right? They think I'm funny and I'm not, that sort of thing. I don't look at you and think weight room monster, but people describe you as like a terror in the weight room. Where does that come from?
I think it's just the environment of the facility I go to at home. I would say a few years ago I was obsessed with, trying to squat as much as I could or whatnot. But now I've just started to understand that's not really. I have the foundation now that I don't really need to squat, max effort. But during COVID, we were in the facility. I was putting on probably too much weight.
Why did you love it though? Like, what about that do you love?
I mean, it was just fun. You're kind of competing with the other guys, competing with the weight. I was one of the skinnier guys there, putting up more weights than some of the guys that weighed more than me. So it was just fun being able to compete in that aspect.
You got up to, by one report, 400-pound squat?
Well, 495 for one rep. Yeah. I don't know if it was a full rep. Probably wasn't a full rep. I would say 450, 470 for a full rep. I put 495 on. I squatted. Probably wasn't a full rep, but I can say I went down a little bit and got it back up.
You at least bent your knees to say that you at least did 495.
Yeah.
Were you always that competitive?
Yeah, I mean, having an older brother who was 4 or 5 years older than me, obviously going to be a little bit better than me at everything. So, yeah, that's probably where it stems from.
When did you first beat Griffin at stuff consistently?
I would say video games, I was always better because I played more. But, like ping pong, basketball, one-on-one, he's still better than me at golf. I hate to say it. I beat him a few times, but he usually beats me. So we still have that competitive stuff going on the golf course.
We always get to an older brother on this podcast. This is like the older brother podcast. Scooble was talking about it. Jake talked about his family. Like it's always something about having an older brother that turns out athletes, but Tigers specifically. How was he as an older brother? Like, what version of an older brother was he? Because we saw him on our telecast say that he's happier it happened for you than even for him to get to the majors.
Yeah, I mean, he's, he watches every start. He texts me about every start. He's, him, my parents, they're awesome. They support me and, throughout the whole season, throughout my whole career. But, as we were growing up, it wasn't like that. It was always, he wanted to beat me bad at everything that we did. So I think that probably pushed me to be the competitor.
4 or 5 years older didn't matter. He wanted to beat you.
Yeah, no matter what we were doing.
Never let you win.
No, never.
You've been described as the baby-faced assassin, the silent assassin. I love the quote from Jake Rogers in a recent story. He's probably the most humble kid in the clubhouse, but he's always sneaking in the shadows.
That's what he told us, right?
I don't know what that means, but
ready to strike, I guess.
Are you a lurker?
No, I wouldn't say a lurker. I just, I'll chime in and chirp the guys if I need to, if I feel the need, if I see an opportunity. So maybe that's what he means.
Okay, what's that look like? What's an example?
I mean, I don't know if I can give you an example. Just if I need, not I don't want to say put someone in their place, but like.
But if you see an opening.
If I see an opening to get a chirp in, I'm going to do it. Like, I can't hold that back.
That's it. I'm really glad we even did these first 7 minutes because on the mound, like I did your debut from the other side with the White Sox last year. And I was watching, because I like watching body language while we're narrating the game. It tells a lot of the story quite often. You don't do anything on the mound. You're the worst to try to find drama from because you're just like, and then you pitch. Where does that come from?
Probably my dad when I was younger. I think being so competitive on the baseball field, I probably showed too much emotion, and he was my coach, so he hated that when I showed any kind of emotion. So growing up, he kind of ironed that out of me. But I think last year I learned that trying to calm down when I'm out there that's what helps me. When I kind of get amped up or too emotional, it's not good for me. So kind of trying to mellow. And Doug Bockler, our AAA pitching coach, helped me kind of realize that. Just kind of calm down no matter what's going on out there. Just try to, be mellow because that's what works for me when I'm on the mound.
And leading in to a conversation earlier this year with AJ. You'd struggled with men on base last year, and right from the get-go this year, you started to pitch much better. And he said it's just a matter of learning to slow the game down, which is what you hear for young players all the time. But that's the time, instead of going harder, you have to back off, really concentrate on disrupt timing. That seemed like a huge step for you this year, as you learned to pitch with men on base. Last year, higher average, higher power numbers. This year, the same.
Yeah, I think just kind of understanding you don't have to do anything different. You know, if a guy gets a hit, if a guy gets on base, I don't have to do anything more than what I've been doing. Just continue to make pitches, execute those pitches, and that's all you can really do.
So you threw this changeup in New York that looked like it needed an exorcism. It looked like it had demon-like qualities. And then, you know, Cody wrote that story in The Athletic, and people have said that your changeup was always a really ridiculous pitch. Do you remember the first time you threw a changeup that made somebody look like they had never seen a baseball before?
So I didn't really have a good changeup until, well, I had a good changeup in 2019. I guess I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So I think the first time I really understood that I had a really good changeup was 2021.
Really?
That was when I was in high A. I leaned on that pitch a ton. And then the next year in Double A, honestly, it felt like I could throw my changeup every pitch and they weren't going to hit it. So
How does that happen year to year? Like, how do you get to that point?
I think it's just getting more comfortable with the grip, understanding where I need to start the pitch. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things, confidence builds, get a few silly swings on it. You want to keep throwing it. So, I don't know, it's probably my favorite pitch to throw when it's going right.
Really?
Yeah.
Even more than that slider that you've had for a long, long, long time?
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I love throwing it. When my changeup's going right, it feels like it's unhittable. So whenever I have that going good, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
The development of pitches is so interesting. We're in this era of pitch design, and there's certainly been a lot written in recent weeks about how pitchers have the advantage over hitters now because of what they can do. But it can take time, can it?
Oh, yeah.
You learned a slider in Milwaukee,
Right.
and then it sounded like that it kind of finally all came together a year and maybe a half later, toward the end of the 2022 season. Some conversations with Brendan White after you'd been traded to the Tigers helped out. Describe that process, and how was it when you're like, oh, there it is, after all this time of throwing it?
Yeah, so the Brewers came to me in 2020. So they had me out to spring training early before everything got shut down to get in the pitch design lab. They came to me and they were like, I only had a curveball and a changeup. They're like, we want something else. Moves a little more horizontal. So got in the pitch design lab early in 2020, and honestly, the first grip that I started throwing worked, and they were like, that's the one. So I've been throwing the same grip.
Same grip.
Yeah, since. It's been really good. And then, yeah, like you said, Brendan White, he had a really good slider. Just playing catch with him, you know, telling me what he sees and stuff. He was a big help for me. But I think towards the end of 22, I moved to the third base side of the rubber, and for whatever reason, something clicked, and I started spinning the ball harder, and my spin jumped up.
Noticeably when you moved to the third base side.
For whatever reason, luck. I don't know. I guess for whatever reason, honestly, it jumped up like 300 RPM. So
Not a small jump.
no, and I don't know why that happened. Maybe it's just the way I can leverage the ball from that side. But thankful I did that.
What was your reaction when you heard 2,900 plus or 3,000 on your spin?
Yeah, I didn't really know a ton about spin rate and what it meant. I guess towards the end of that year is when we really started, or me personally really started to understand. I'm talking to other guys that, you know, guys are spinning it at 23, 24, and I'm throwing it 3,000 sometimes. So that's when I really started to understand how big spin rate on a slider can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about baseball now gets you as excited as the weight room used to?
I mean, it's just competing. You know, going out there and pitching versus these lineups that had guys that I was watching when I was in high school and middle school. Just a lot of fun to, you know, be at the highest level and go out there and compete against the best players in the world.
What guy or guys were you like, oh, I played the show against him?
I mean, there have been a lot. last year my third start was versus the Phillies, who we're playing right now. Seems like their whole lineup, right? But I mean, Bryce Harper's been one of the biggest names in the sport for a while, so I would say him last year when he walked up to the plate, he's a little bit different walking up there.
Yeah.
I think of the 2 at-bats in the Yankee game last year. Aaron Judge, I think I had the order right. Swing and miss slider for a strikeout. Next at-bat, I think these are his second and third at-bats against you. Curveball, swing and miss.
Yeah.
Can you describe that? Those 2 strikeouts in those moments?
That was a weird day for me. I think I didn't even get through the 5th inning.
Yeah, 4 1/3, 10 strikeouts.
Yeah. My stuff was moving. I just remember that day. My stuff was just moving all over the place, and that's probably why. I don't remember how many I walked. It was either 3 or 4, but my stuff was moving a ton. I mean, days like that are fun. Obviously, I would have liked to have harnessed it more that day, but so I could go deeper in the game. But looking back on that day, I mean, versus the New York Yankees and Aaron Judge, who's been one of the best players in baseball. Looking back, just seeing I can have success versus those guys, it's cool to see.
And it seemed like those 2 starts back-to-back, because the next start was Chicago, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout, but you went 7.
Yeah.
It seems like between those 2, it's like there's a nice little learning curve coming out of both in terms of how do I go deeper into games while still getting swing and miss.
Yeah. I think a little bit of that had to do with the approach from both the teams, but at the same time, I just kind of realized my job is to get outs. It's fun to strike guys out, but my job is to get as many outs as possible.
You mentioned earlier, you were talking about that stretch of 3 starts that we began the podcast with before the start in Atlanta, and you said some bad luck. That is a phrase that I would imagine is really difficult for a pitcher to handle and use properly. You have to be in charge on the mound, so I would imagine you try to say, none of it's luck, I'm in control, I screwed up if something goes wrong. How do you internalize and use the phrase bad luck when it's actually true?
I mean, I don't like to use to say that about a start, bad luck, because obviously throughout those 2 starts I was making some bad pitches too. But
and that's where I figured you'd go. But sometimes it is true that you ran into bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at some of the hits I gave up, I was giving up barrels. I was making bad pitches, but at the same time, in between those barrels, there were hits that were good.
Everything was fine to go.
Yeah, like 80 miles an hour, a few hits in a row. So I think it's just one of those things you have to understand is going to happen in baseball. I hate to blame a bad start on that because it's not the bad luck's fault that I had a few bad starts in a row. I wasn't making pitches. But it's kind of understanding that it wasn't as bad as it looks on paper. Kind of trying to find, how to look at the game. Just understanding that my stuff's still good, and it's tough. It's tough to look at it one way or the other.
Well, then you have to sit with it for 4 days.
Yeah, it's as a starter. If you have a good start, you're on top of the world to your next start, and then if you have a bad one, you're trying to grind and you're trying to push through and make sure you have a good one the next time.
What do you do to take your mind off a bad start those 4 days?
Me and Bo Brisky have been playing a lot of FIFA.
Really?
Yeah, play FIFA, play golf, do whatever.
Who do you like to use in FIFA?
We've been switching it up. We've been playing with Barcelona a lot. But Bo likes to be the manager and set up the formation and everything, and I just play. So I let him handle all that, pick the team and everything.
When Bo Brisky's managing a major league team in 15 years, we're going to pull this clip and be like, we knew it. We saw it coming.
He was headed that way.
Is he a good soccer club manager?
Yeah, I think so. He's doing all the research on the internet, making sure we got the right formation and everything. All the tactics, whatever they're calling on FIFA, are dialed in. So,
is he as good of a communicator as AJ? As a leader?
I mean, tough to say, but I mean, it's pretty comparable, I would say.
But you're the guy who mans the buttons, and you can move.
I mean,
those
we're
guys.
both playing the game,
Right, but that's your strength.
Yeah, I like to make nice passes on there. I'll let Bo score, but I like to make the cool passes.
Did you play basketball, high school?
I played basketball. I actually liked playing basketball a lot more than baseball up until high school. But once baseball got serious, I just decided probably time to stop playing basketball.
Strike throwing is something that, we hear about a lot. Your strike throwing improved markedly when you came to this organization. Going back to that trade, you're with Milwaukee. First of all, what did Milwaukee miss when they traded you away for Daniel Norris, a fine pitcher, but it was a 2-month rental? Were you surprised when you're thinking, you guys, I'm getting better? What did you not notice?
I mean, don't really think too much about that. Don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes. Just got to go wherever they tell me to go, right? It was one of those things that, I'm just going to try to continue to get better no matter where I'm at.
Throwing strikes is not just throwing pitches in the strike zone, but obviously quality strikes. Does it all start with the fastball for you? And what does it mean to you when they say, hey, you got to throw more strikes?
Yeah, in my head, I'm thinking I'm trying to throw strikes, right? It's just one of those things you have to understand that, especially at this level, they're not going to chase pitches. So you have to establish the zone. And I think, like you said, establishing your heaters, showing them that you can throw heaters in the zone, that opens up everything. So when I'm able to command both of my heaters, four-seam and sinker, it definitely opens up everything. For me, I think teams are kind of looking soft because my off-speed stuff is kind of what I lean on. So when I'm really able to command the heaters, it's hard for them to cover both.
Steph Curry, LeBron, Giannis, or Jamal Murray, who were you most like when you played basketball?
Man, that's a tough question. I was kind of
a blend of all of them.
I just kind of set up in the corner and shot threes. So I guess Steph, right?
But you could dish too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I played a little bit of point guard, a little shooting guard. I just like to set up behind the three-point line and shoot threes.
So the answer is Kyle Korver.
The answer is Kyle Korver.
Duncan Robinson?
Yeah, those are my guys.
Type thing?
Those are my guys.
Are they actually?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Like
that's
corner threes.
Corner threes.
Specifically corner threes.
Set up in the corner, wait for the ball to get in my hands and throw it up.
You got to meet Duncan Robinson, I think, is what we got to do at some point here. Michigan, man. I love that. Gainesville is the poultry capital of the world?
That's what they say.
You didn't see any signs of that when you were growing up?
No, so I didn't actually live in the town of Gainesville.
Okay.
I lived a little bit north of it, in a pretty small town.
But a smaller town than the poultry capital of the world.
Yeah, I lived in a small town called Claremont.
Okay.
But yeah, Gainesville, when you're driving on the highway, you're driving past the chicken plants.
So what's Claremont like?
Farm, chicken houses, cows, corn.
You said chicken houses first.
Yeah.
So you're like
that's the first thing I think of, when they clean out the chicken houses every few weeks. It smells pretty bad for a day or two. So that's where I live.
Did you do all that stuff?
I was gonna,
No,
did you have
no.
that job in high school?
No. My job was, we were a baseball family through and through. So my dad played it growing up. My brother played it. So that was our big thing, was always baseball.
Who are the big early influences? I'm always interested in hearing who are the guys that helped shape your career, either in the mental side of the game or physical side of the game, always influences along the way. Who are some that you always think of when you look back?
My dad and my brother.
They're the top two.
Yeah, of course. They helped me get into baseball, start loving the game. But once I got drafted out of high school. Jared Oliver, he owns the facility I work at. Him and his cousin McLean Ramey. They're all the help in the world to me in my career. Jared went to high school at North Hall, where I went, and played with my brother a little bit. He got drafted out of a school, a small NAIA school, and up near where I live. And he played with the Red Sox and made it to Double-A, and he opened the facility. So ever since I got drafted, I got hooked up with him, and that's who I work out with. That's who I play catch with. So I'd say him. Ever since I've been drafted, he's been the biggest help for me.
Catch partners are an interesting aspect of pitching because you can't be on the mound every day. Starters that have their routine, relievers, flat ground work. Catch partners are big. It's always interesting. So right away, Brendan White was one of your first catch partners. But describe the importance of that and some of the things that a good catch partner helps you with.
Yeah, I just think day to day, if you're playing catch with the same guy, they're able to see the movement of your pitches, right? So they can tell you if something's different, what's good, what's bad. I just think they understand you as a pitcher, and they can help, see the shape of the pitch, see the spin, whatever it might be. And that's a big help throughout a long season like we have.
It's not just out there playing catch. There's a purpose to every day that you're throwing with your catch partner.
Right, yeah. I mean, whether it be a recovery day, a heavier day, they're just as important. So I just think day to day, getting on the same page as a catch partner, it's a huge help.
Would you like for Dan to become your catch partner?
Yeah, if you want to, we can go out there and I'll throw some sliders.
What would be toughest for Dan
sure I could catch
or
one.
me if we were playing catch with you? Like, what do you think is toughest to catch of yours?
Probably my changeup.
Really?
Yeah, I just think it's the one that moves the weirdest and the latest. It spins pretty weird.
So it's hitting us in the left knee, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It might be a few whiffs in there if I throw you a changeup.
Oh, I would like to see that, Jason.
I would love that. The Tigers'
The gloves
throw
on
to
you, though.
Jason and Dan would be a liability concern, but boy, would it be fun. Who is, pound for pound, the funniest guy in the Tigers clubhouse? I know there are a lot of situationally funny guys. Moment to moment, the funniest person in that clubhouse.
I think it's easy for me. It's Alex Faedo.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Something about his humor. It's just everything every day. He's just a funny guy to listen to. He's just one of those guys that whatever they say is just funny.
And you don't have to give him a zinger. You don't have to. You just listen.
Yeah, I can just sit back and listen to that guy talk, and it's just hilarious.
We had Jake Rogers on the podcast. He entertained us with some stories, and I love it when catchers come to the mound, and he's talking about some of the things you talk about. What's the best thing a catcher can say to you when they come out for a mound visit?
Man, it's tough when I'm out there, and because when you're having a mound visit, it's usually not going good, right?
You probably don't want to have anybody.
It's that's tough to answer. I think it's just kind of try to lighten the mood.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, just whether it's going good or bad or whatever, them just trying to calm me down, like I talked about earlier. Being calm is my best when I'm at my best out there. So I think they can tell pretty early when they come out for a visit if I'm kind of sped up. So just whatever they can say to kind of slow everything down.
What's the worst thing you've ever said to an umpire? In the majors, minors, or otherwise?
Honestly, I don't talk to umpires much. I don't say much to them, so I don't know if I can give you an answer there. Yeah.
Not even like when you were a little kid or something? You're like 9 and you're like...
No, because my dad would have handled that pretty quick. No, I don't. I try to steer clear of the umpires, to be honest with you.
Well, how do you take your... where do your emotions go? Where do you put them?
They were ironed out, remember?
I know, but like they're still bubbling. You ever see a tea kettle?
That's on the golf course. That's when my emotions come out more.
Really?
Yeah, hitting a bad shot in golf is the most frustrating thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you're pretty good, I'm guessing.
I'm all right. I can be good.
Except for the days when you miss-hit a ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you shank a ball in the woods, it kind of ruins my round, moves my mood for a few holes. But, golf is where the emotions come out.
Why do you all play golf? Another thing you really can't control, but the illusion of control's there. Like, why do you guys hunt that?
I think when you go play golf and you hit one good shot, it feels so good to, stick one close. So that's what keeps us going back.
But the one you remember is the one you shanked into the woods.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it's kind of like baseball, ups and downs. Feels so good when you hit a good shot, and you feel so bad when you hit a bad shot.
I have a theory that really good golfers don't ever seem to really enjoy a round of golf because they remember the shots they didn't make.
Yeah.
They'll shoot 77, like,
Could have been a 74. Yeah. I've had a few of those. Yeah.
I just don't understand, Dan, why you would, if you're a pitcher and you're doing this whole thing that, like, you remember the one pitch that went over the wall, why you would then fill the rest of your day with another sport that does that.
I think for pitchers, golf makes you feel like a little bit more of an athlete. As pitchers, we kind of get labeled as the unathletic guys, but when you're playing golf, you'd feel a little bit more like an athlete.
That needs to be a T-shirt. Like, we need to have, like, pitchers or athletes, too, with a golf club.
Yeah. Because I would argue that the best golfers in the clubhouse are the pitchers.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Carson Kelly's pretty good. I think he's probably the best in our clubhouse, from what I've heard. And I haven't played with him. I played with Shelby. He's really good. But probably as a whole, I would venture to say that the pitchers are probably a little bit better.
Jackson Jobe will join that group someday.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's pretty good with his dad being on tour.
There's a chance.
I mean, I figure. Tunneling. We're watching at home. We're trying to explain tunneling to an audience. And sometimes you can see it. Pitching Ninja helps. Why is tunneling so important? And do you think of pitches in groups of 2, groups of 3, individual pitches? How do you put them all together?
Yeah, I think it's just the longer all my pitches look the same, the later they move, it's that much harder for the hitter to hit. So you can ask a hitter and they'll say if a pitch, immediately looks different, they can just spit on it. Kind of honestly just flush that pitch and not have to worry about that pitch. So for me, that's the big thing. The longer I can make my changeup and my slider look like a fastball, that's the biggest thing, right? It's the hardest thing for a hitter to be able to cover.
Do you think of pitches as each individual pitch, or do you group them in your mind? Like, this pitch is going to set up the next pitch, going to set up the next pitch. How far ahead do you go?
Yeah, obviously all these pitches they set each other up. So if I, just for example, backdoor sinker, slider away, right, to a righty, the longer they look like they're the same pitch going straight, one goes this way, one goes that way, it's really hard to cover if you can hammer both those down. And then start thinking about four-seam up, curveball off of that. They all kind of go together.
Pitching to both sides of the plate is such an art. Tyler Holden said last year at the end of the year, that was the thing that really had helped him the most in his first full year in the major leagues. Learning, I can throw that cutter back door to a righty. Because nobody ever asked me to do that, but I liked the way it looked, and it worked. Is that something you feel like you can do with all of your pitches, and how huge is that for you? Because all of a sudden 5 becomes 10 maybe.
Yeah, I think start to start, pitch like inning to inning, those things can change, feel throughout the game from start to start. But yeah, like you said with this cutter, kind of the same for me with a backdoor slider to a lefty. It's really hard for them to swing at that, and if they do swing at it, it's really hard to square up. So having pitches like that you can kind of lean on, that you cannot kind of understand that it's hard to swing at. It's almost a free strike sometimes.
Turk Skubal was singing your praises a few weeks ago. Said, I don't even know if he knows how good his stuff is. He says, I tell him all the time, you can spin it better than anybody. But he was saying one of the things that you and he have talked about is you always hear pitch to your strengths. You're trying to match it, and if your strength is their strength, he said one of the things you've talked about is sometimes you go away from your strength if it's their strength, and you can get them out a different way. But that seems like that's, again, going out of your comfort zone maybe, but what an important thing to learn. And it seems like he's been a big help and influence in your development.
Yeah, Scoob has been, just kind of watching him go about his business, the days that he pitches, just a different kind of competitor out there. The way he competes is, I've said it a few times, but it's different than anyone it seems like we have. So, just having a guy like that run out there every 5 days, it feels like a win. But yeah, working with him, just seeing the way he uses his pitches, no matter what, he's going to lean on his stuff, understanding that his stuff is better than what the hitter has. So I think learning that, not going away. If a guy, can handle on paper a slider, understanding that my slider's still good enough, not shy away from that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about catchers, but we haven't talked about pitch comm with anybody here on this podcast. And pitch comm, as we know, can include anybody's voice. Austin Hedges very famously had that pitch comm where he was like blank, yeah, when a guy made a good pitch, right? What celebrity would you want to be the pitch comm voice if you could choose one celebrity in your ear?
Man, I don't know. My mind went straight to Morgan Freeman. I don't know.
Not bad.
That would be amazing.
That would be.
But you might get distracted. It's so good. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, that is a great call.
Pitch timer violation. Pitch.
That would
Listen
be
to
good.
that voice.
That'd be really good.
That would be. I think that would be a solid one.
Describe and compare Jake Rogers and Carson Kelly as motivators. What do they do differently psychologically?
They're the same in some ways, a little bit different in other ways. I think Raj is more of the. Man, it's tough to describe him.
We had him on the podcast, so we have a
Yeah.
feel for what you might be getting ready to say.
Raj is more of like, he's a little bit, I don't want to say louder, but like, he's back there, he's like pounding his glove a little bit more. Carson's more of like the calm, in between innings, trying to calm me down. They both do a good job of calming me down, but I don't know, it's tough to compare them.
He's so polite. You're so nice. How often do you raise your voice?
When I'm playing FIFA, I raise my voice.
Really?
Yeah, if I feel like the game screws me a little bit, I'll raise my voice a little bit. Me and Bo will get pretty heated, but I try to stay pretty calm at all times.
So somebody gives you a yellow card for what you believe is a legal slide tackle. The computer does.
Right.
What are you saying?
I don't know if I can say what I'm saying on this podcast. Yeah, I don't know if I can go there. But me and Bo, we get into it.
You do?
Yeah, we have some fun when we're playing FIFA.
You can't be loud in a public setting.
No.
It's amazing. No, it's such an asset though. As I watch you pitch, to think of you as like a 10-year-old that's really emotional and your dad has to help get that out of you, I can't even fathom it. Like, what were you like after you pitched? Like, how did that go?
I think it was just, man, on the days I didn't do well when I was a little kid, felt like the end of the world. So,
Really?
just kind of growing up over time, understanding that, baseball is an important part of my life, but it's not the most important thing.
What is the most important thing?
I mean, family, faith. I feel like those are the two biggest things.
What was dinner like at the Olson household?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of me and my brother getting in trouble, right? From what had happened previous. Probably still be arguing, whatever we were doing. We were probably outside playing wiffle ball, and we were still mad at each other, and that led to something at dinner, and my dad had to, put a stop to it.
Dad was always the referee. Mom stepped
Yeah.
in every once in a while.
When Mom stepped in, it wasn't good. It was always Dad. He would handle the discipline, but
It's awesome.
That's good.
Reese, thank you so much for doing
yeah,
this.
of course. Thank you guys for having me on.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Reese Olson, ladies and gentlemen.